Hello and welcome to this week's 52 Weeks. This week we're continuing in Chapter 5, almost done. We've got subsection 6, which is looking at observations. I know these are not labeled within the comp plan, but I broke these down because it's a little easier to digest them in sections. This potential for maintenance industry section, the city must aggressively address its deferred maintenance. If it doesn't, we're just going to let buildings continue to fall apart, unmothballed well, and we're going to continue to lose buildings. So what is that cost? With a construction cost of $200 to $300 a square foot for masonry, so the comparables run from $500,000 to $750,000 at a 4% maintenance cost per year, $20,000 to $30,000 per year, or about $1,600 to $2,500 per month. If we asked our residents to try to bear that cost to catch up on this deferred maintenance, that is not going to happen. That's beyond the means of median income residents. And this is something that no one is talking about. We can continue to bring and want to bring in people from the outside to buy houses and single family houses. So this just is not going to affect the rest of this housing. And what's going to happen is, and this has happened in other cities, is that vast swaths of land are going to continue to be changed over and developed in a new way, and we're going to lose parts of our city. This has happened in Philly. This is a big thing in Detroit. This is what's happened. A lot of the urban cities realized what their problem was too late. And I'm not saying that this is going to be an easy fix of trying to save every single building, but we've got to come up with a system that works. And part of that solution is in the people in place. We focus on better places and this quality of living, in that we don't want our buildings falling apart and becoming a detriment to our residents living here or students walking to school. So we've got an education process where we need to get students plugged back into this idea of what their city is and giving them hope and vision in their city as well. This potential for maintenance industry continues. We need an innovative approach to provide the regular scheduled maintenance, a smart energy use for systems, and the competitive bidding for major projects. And the quote here is, these houses could be the subject of apprenticeship training programs for the interested youth and also returning citizens, providing labor to address deferred maintenance at a highly discounted cost to the building owner. Another bit within the observation, historic housing and non-house types. Harrisburg should be embracing the heterotopian and niche markets not found outside the city. So this is where we are unique. Outside the city, the single family house tends to rule. Okay, so we should get this uniqueness of houses, uniqueness of experiences that's different than anything outside of the city itself. So why does the city continue to push this single family house to try to fit within a system that really doesn't? Offering a broad range of affordable quality rental properties enables young people, new arrivals in the city, and elderly alike to continue to live in the city on a relatively low fixed income. That's another piece of the city, is that we've got the mobility and transit and walkability that we should be emphasizing with these types of population groups. Resident homeownership is important. Cities should adopt aggressive programs to change the economic model of property with the older buildings from real estate to building asset. This should be the idea, is that we don't look at a real estate investments, we look at building asset investing long-term and long-term thinking. Resident homeownership, the basic economics holds that scarcity equals value. Quote from the comp plan, if policy redefines these properties as a scarce resource rather than a blighted property, the market should naturally begin to invest in the undervalued assets. The policy challenge is to make sure the existing stakeholders in the areas have opportunities to benefit from the emergence of the asset class of property. This is going to be a key in any changes that begin to happen, because this is what's seen in other cities, is this loss of value from the stakeholders, the existing stakeholders that have been here in these communities for so long. That's part of the disgruntledness within the neighborhood and this neighborhood change. Having a loan program, the property owner is to realize the latent value of the asset class through careful renovation. The program should require the use of local apprentice programs for initial work and follow-on maintenance schedule. This is again looking at Philadelphia with the restore, repair, renew process in that program. Targeting reinvestment in contiguous areas of distressed property where buildings are already considered to be asset class structures. This is in the areas of Front Street, the Academy Manor, Bellevue Park, 18th Street between Maclay and Division. This is also in West Shrinerstown and west of 3rd Street. A quote from this WHYY program. This is again from March of this year. Both Baltimore and Philadelphia find themselves facing affordable housing shortages even as they struggle to maintain extensive supplies of aging row homes. More than 80% of Philadelphia housing stock was built before 1970. Sounds familiar? According to the census data, it can cost between $300,000 to $450,000 to build a new subsidized housing unit in Philadelphia, meaning that only $40 million would cover the construction of fewer than 200 new units. That same amount of money, $40 million, again, will maintain thousands of more homes. This is a critical moment, is where do we want to spend the money? Do we put the money into new homes and only have a few of them, which has been our constant process the past decade? That's been as long as I've been here. If you count up the number of houses that have been built, the number of houses that have been subsidized and used public money for that as well to build these houses? Or do we see this actually getting reinvested into the people who have lived here the longest and dealt with the longest deferred maintenance and disinvestment? Resident homeownership is important. Moving beyond the fee simple model, building citywide engagement of residents to invest in existing and future housing units, we can encourage individuals and groups collectively purchase and develop property, implementing cooperative housing models, implementing co-housing models, and encouraging local partnerships. Together, this takes an effort. This is the grassroots effort. We can be Harrisburg. While the small area plans are being developed, it's helpful to look at residential design guidelines. This should be part of the Department of Building and Housing Development. This looks at the character and place of structures, the enhancement of the benefit for all city residents, clarify responsibility of owners of historic structures, the models for designing new structures compatible with adjacent buildings, preserve the best qualities of established neighborhoods. This can happen in the area plans where we look through and make note of the assets that are here, the number and qualities of each of those assets. Getting to some of the larger pieces in all this discussion of observation, sustainability is intimately tied to the emergence of the city's historic building stock as an asset class of property. The goal of the planning effort has been to take a city that has realized booms and busts and to make it permanently sustainable. To do this, the traditional approach to real estate must be questioned. Our area real estate system is traditional and not as advanced or innovative. Quote out of the comp plan, it has not provided adequate variety, distribution, or stability of housing assets through the city to date. The change in view of real estate from the individual holdings to management of an asset class creates a different approach to property management than the suburban model. Continuing on, the change in social understanding of real estate from a medium to exploit to an asset that must be sustainably managed changes within the understanding that all other properties in the city must be collectively participating in water management, power consumption, economic participation, and the larger asset of the healthy neighborhood. So this is where all of the holistic approaches are looked at in that nothing is separate. This is why the city is different than a suburban model. And I would argue the suburban model is even important as looking at these relationships as distance and geography are trying to separate these things and trying to hide our connectivity in our relationship with one another. If housing is viewed and managed as the residential infrastructure of the city, it is maintained sustainably to produce an even yield year after year. In contrast, the projects requiring substantial demolition and subsidies should be closely scrutinized for long-term sustainability. Extraction of value should be weighed against the potential even yield. This gets into a concept of mining versus farming. In the comp plan, as noted above, demolition represents the permanent removal of aggregate value from the city's greatest single long-term asset, its areas of continuous historic building fabric. Any city-facilitated project proposing substantial demolition should demonstrate that the value being reinvested is greater than the replacement value of the demolished structures. And lastly, the quote, neglect of individual properties does large collection harm to neighbors. Thus, the investigation of collective management makes sense for an area where it is clear the cost of maintenance is beyond the financial and technical capability of building owners and residents. In contrast, the projected multiplier effect benefits the local economy and the collective benefits of accelerated appreciation are clear.